Uh, you know, there are moments when the world grows quiet around you, even as everything inside feels a little less steady than it used to. Moments when you're showing up, doing the work, carrying the weight, but something in you is fraying at the edges. Most people overlook this. They think mental health slips only in dramatic ways, with clear signs or sudden breaks, but more often it's quieter than that. It happens in the small withdrawals, the unspoken worries, the slow erosion of confidence you don't tell anyone about. And if we're honest with ourselves, part of what makes it so hard is the stigma, that persistent whisper that says you should handle everything alone, that asking for help is a weakness. But what if the real danger isn't the struggle itself, but our silence about it? Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the educational content of this channel. If you step back and look at the early 21st century, you see a world waking up to a truth it had long ignored, that mental health isn't just a private matter tucked away in the shadows of a home or behind the quiet facade of a workplace. It became a public conversation, sometimes halting, sometimes courageous, about dignity, about justice, about the unseen burdens so many people carry each day. For generations, those who suffered were pushed to the margins, shamed into isolation, or dismissed as fragile. But gradually, we began to understand that a society built on democratic ideals can't afford that kind of blindness. Because when people feel unseen, when struggle becomes something you hide rather than share, the fabric that holds us together weakens. And just as science advanced, offering tools, therapies, new technologies, new tensions emerged, questions about privacy, about humanity being translated into data, about whether progress might accidentally widen the distance between those who suffer and those who want to help. Beneath all that, though, was a quieter revolution. The recognition that mental health is not a solitary battle, but a collective responsibility. That the well being of each individual is tied to the health of a community. When I was organizing on the south side of Chicago, I met folks who woke up every day carrying stress most people never see. Single parents working two jobs, young people navigating violence, entire neighborhoods wrestling with poverty. And I learned quickly that hardship doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's a young man who stops showing up to community meetings. Sometimes it's a mother whose voice gets quieter each week. Years later, in the White House, the stakes changed, but the lesson didn't. You sit in the Oval Office, and suddenly you realize how many people around you, advisors, security staff, members of Congress, are moving through the world while fighting invisible battles of their own, leaders included. There's this myth that if you're in power, you're immune to doubt or exhaustion. But the truth is, leadership doesn't eliminate vulnerability, it just makes it easier to hide. And I'll admit, there were days I felt the weight of the job pressing in from all directions, days when hope felt less like a soaring ideal and more like a responsibility you had to fight your way back to. What grounded me wasn't perfection, it was people, Michelle, friends. Those who reminded me that asking for help is its own form of strength. And in moments of crisis, whether navigating a recession or a pandemic, I saw clearly how mental health wasn't just an individual concern, it was a civic one. It shaped how communities responded, how families endured, how a nation healed. If you sit with this long enough, you start to see that mental health isn't simply about chemistry or circumstance, it's about connection. It's about whether we build a society that gives people room to breathe, to falter, to be human, and it raises a deeper question about who we want to be for one another. Technology, for all its progress, can make us feel more exposed than understood. Science can offer answers that don't always touch the heart. And politics, well, politics can turn vulnerability into something to exploit rather than honor. But at its core, the struggle for mental well being echoes the larger struggle of democracy. Can we see each other fully? Can we create spaces where dignity isn't earned but recognized? Hope, I've learned, isn't blind optimism, It's the choice every day to confront reality as it is while believing we can do better. And that's true whether we're talking about the health of a nation or the quiet unraveling happening inside someone who feels alone. Justice in this context isn't just about laws or rights. It's about cultivating a culture where empathy is normal, where asking for help isn't an act of desperation, but an affirmation of belonging, where we understand that when one person's mental health declines, the ripple touches us all. So when you think about the subtle ways your own mental health might be depreciating, don't treat it as a personal failing. Treat it as a signal, a quiet call to step back, reach out, reconnect. Every one of us will face moments when we feel stretched thin, when the ground shifts a little under our feet. The question is whether we meet those moments with isolation or with honesty, whether we choose to hide the struggle or invite others into it, whether we see mental health not as a crack in the armor, but as part of what makes us human. And if that's true, then maybe the real work isn't just noticing the signs in ourselves, but creating a world where people don't have to hide them in the first place. So let me leave you with this. When was the last time you checked in, truly checked in with yourself? Who in your life might need a little patience, a little presence, a little understanding? And what kind of community are we building if we ignore the struggles we all quietly carry?